Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it will be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Evil Stepfather. When I was 15, my mom started dating a man she met on a dating website. I didn't like him the first time I met him, and 2 months later, he moved into the house. About 3 weeks after he moved in, he took my skateboard, self-built half-pipe, Rams BMX bike, ice hockey gear and many other things to the dump one day while I was at school. He said he did this because he didn't want all of my crap cluttering up his garage. Maybe 2 months later, he punched me in the stomach for the first time because I got up from the dinner table without asking to be excused. From there, it escalated into full-fledged beatdowns for the smallest perceived slight to his authority. One day, he decided to take my extensive Pokemon card collection, even more extensive comic book collection, my Game Boy and PS2 with all the assorted games, and my fantasy and sci-fi book collection, and got rid of all of it. Because 15-year-old boys should be playing football and baseball, not being a nerd playing with Pokemon cards and reading comics and books. I would like to add that he was a middle school teacher, and then in his off time refereed and umpired local middle and high school sports game. My mom never intervened, and in fact acquiesced when he demanded that she stop giving me lunch money, because the little jerk would just spend it on comics and other stupid stuff. One day I took maybe $3 and some change out of his change jar so that I could buy a slice of pizza and some fruit punch during lunch at school, because I was so tired of being hungry. My twin sister was always a bit of a jerk and frequently blackmailed me into doing her own chores from a young age. I was fed up and refused to do something as she told him what I had done. This man actually called the police and pressed a larceny charge against me, and once the police had left, he beat me senseless. At that point, I ran away. When the cops found me and returned me to my home, I found out that he has been trying to talk to my mom into sending me away to some military school or something of that nature. So I ran away again, and between having run away several times and the larceny charge, I ended up turning 16 in juvenile detention. I spent the next couple of years miserable and afraid, frequently contemplating suicide. Once I left home, I did not speak to my mom for several years. We eventually reconciled, and by that point they had married. I was a lot bigger than I had been as a young teenager, and had gotten into weightlifting, so he no longer acted like he was going to punch me to make me flinch, much less actually hit me, and we basically avoided each other for the most part. My mother found out that she had stage 4 cancer and no longer wanted to waste any of the time she had left with him. So she had a lawyer draft up a separation agreement whereby he would receive a set amount of money upon separation and would have 45 days to retrieve his belongings from the house. He had spent his entire inheritance in 6 months and then had to sell his mother's house that he grew up in order to settle his debts shortly before they started dating. Oh, and my mom bought the house back from the bank before they married. She allowed him to keep the house and he moved back into his mother's house. My mother passed away about 9 months after their separation, and despite the agreement had been allowing him to come and get his stuff piecemeal, I put an immediate end to that. I sold his baseball card collection, around $14,000, and his autographed sports memorabilia, roughly $11,000, and also sold all of his woodworking equipment along with several finished pieces of furniture that he had made. Around $6,500, I think. I kept his mother's engagement ring, platinum band 3 diamonds roughly 2 carats, the wedding band, his coin collection, I also collect coins, and some tools and other odds and ends. Around a month ago I ran into him at the grocery store. I told him what I had done as he was pushing his cart out toward his car, and he took a swing at me multiple times. Several of these punches missed, and the ones that they connected did not have much effect because he's nowhere near as strong as he was 20 years ago in his 40s. And I'm no longer a skinny little 15-year-old. He continued to try to punch me as I called 911. And he was actively ramming his grocery cart into my new Toyota. As the police officers pulled into the parking lot, he was arrested for assault, communicating threats, and destruction of property. As a result, he lost his job and pension at the local middle school. And because he had never learned how to save money while married to my somewhat wealthy mother, ended up having to sell his mother's house because he hired an expensive lawyer thinking he could somehow beat the charges. My nephew, who was on the football team, made it well known to his friends that he not only had just been arrested and convicted of assault as well as other charges, but that he had also beat me as a child. And that caused several parents to call for him to resign from refereeing and umpiring for local sports games. My niece and my girlfriend's much younger sister are enrolled at the middle school where he worked. And they say that he was not only universally disliked, but when he came up to the school to get his belongings, he made a big scene and ended up hysterically crying as he was leaving. At least that's what they have heard from the kids who were attending summer school at the time. His son, who he was equally abusive towards as a child, refused to take him in or help him out, so he ended up having to take a job as a cashier at Walmart so that he could afford the rent on his little trailer in an absolutely awful neighborhood. Even though that Walmart is not the closest Walmart to my house, that is now the only place where I go grocery shopping or to purchase anything that I need. I purposely stand in line longer than I need to, just so that he can be the one who has the pleasure of ringing up my purchases. The first time I went through his line, he attempted to ring up multiple items more than one time to overcharge me, and when I called him out on it, he said that I was mistaken. I asked for a manager, and the manager believed him that it was an accident, but he learned that he can get away with that. The second time, I made sure to be as nice as possible, and I asked for a manager because he was overwhelmingly rude. The people in line behind me backed me up, and he got in some trouble for that. Every time I go there and step into the line, I see him die a little bit inside. And it's maybe pity, but it gives me such satisfaction. Sometimes I'll say that I'm paying with exact change, and as I'm about to hand him the money, I'll say, "Oh, I didn't realize I had rare coin from his collection in my pocket. I guess I'll pay cash." I just sold his expensive ratcheting wrench set, and so on Monday when he works again, I am going to buy my daughter one of their better above ground pools. And as he's ringing it out, tell him that I know that the daughter is just going to love this pool. It's not like I would have ever used those expensive ratcheting wrenches anyway. Next story. Lady claims I'm a safety hazard at my own job. For context, I'm 18 female and just started at a big chain auto parts store, even though I know little to nothing about vehicles and how to fix them. Family member got me in. But I'm getting by fairly well and haven't had a complaint yet, so fingers crossed. Even though I'm 18, I'm very short, 5 foot even, and have a big baby face, so I often get mistaken for being 12, despite having pastel pink hair and a nose piercing. The story. So this happened last week when I was stocking and facing shelves about half an hour before closing. as it is mandatory to have the store fully stocked and neat before leaving for the night. Our store's equipped each location with very tall rolling ladders, clearly marked employees only in the store, so I was stocking the top shelves where we keep our car wash supplies when I noticed this lady dressed in high-end business clothes, something you don't see here very often, and she kept staring at me. I finally asked her if there is anything I can help her find, and the following conversation ensues. The entitled woman says,
"Young lady, you know those ladders are for employees only, right?"
I was a bit confused because I was literally stocking shelves and had the employee uniform on with my name stitched on it. The company policy. Yes ma'am, I know, I work here. I just started a few weeks ago. I point to the logo on my work shirt. She looks me up and down and says,
"Aren't you a little young to be working here? I thought they didn't hire until 18.
I'm 18. My birthday was in January, and I just started here."
"Lies! You get down from there right now before I get you kicked out for lying and playing on store equipment."
Startled, I told her, "No, I work here. I'm doing my job." An attempt to go by to stock the shelves when she grabs my ankle and tries to pull me off a 6-foot ladder. Keep in mind these ladders are as old as the store and aren't the most sturdy. So I grip the handles and pray it doesn't fall over while I yell at her to leave me alone.
"No, you shouldn't be up there. You could get hurt."
Ironic, I know. At this point, my coworker hears a commotion and comes out of the back to see what's going on. She walks around the corner to see me shaking my leg trying to get out of her death grip before the ladder falls over, and trying not to cry or pee myself as I'm terribly afraid of heights. The coworker tells her, "Ma'am, what are you doing? Stop, she could fall."
"She shouldn't even be up there. She doesn't work here."
While she was distracted, I quickly shake my ankle out of her death grip and speed down the ladder and over to my coworker.
"I demand she be banned from this store for being disruptive and a safety hazard."
"Ma'am, she works here. We just hired her 2 weeks ago."
"Then prove it. Show me her schedule and her ID right now."
I tell her, "First of all, I'm not showing you my schedule, so you can come here and harass me every time. Secondly, I'm not showing you my ID. I don't have anything to prove to you. Please leave the store before I call the police."
"I'll gladly call the police."
She pulls out her phone and dials 911. At this point, I am so shaken up and tired, and just want to go home. So my coworker sends me to the back to try to finish up my duties before we close. About 10 minutes later, the police show up and the Karen starts screaming about how I was being a safety hazard. And then I kicked her in the face. The police look at me and again assume I'm only 12, until my coworker explains to them what actually happened. The police requested the security footage, which we happily showed them. Of course, it got Karen physically harassing me, as she started yelling that she was only looking out for my safety and did nothing wrong. Obviously, the cops did not buy it and told her that if she was truly concerned for my safety, she should have taken it up with the manager on duty instead of physically harassing an employee. They escorted her out where she continued screaming, and I told them I do want to press charges since she probably could have caused me to fall off and break multiple bones in my body. It has been about a week since the incident and I haven't seen her since, thankfully. But I think it's safe to say I may not last long in this business. Next story. How I made $2,000 off a meth dealer. A few years ago, I was married to a degenerate tweaker. She wasn't originally like that, but you know, meth does what meth does. I kept interfering with her tweaker lifestyle, trying to get her treatment, etc. And she rewarded my efforts with a restraining order. Lied and said that I beat her and other overly dramatic stuff. So I get kicked out of my place and end up in a studio apartment with nothing but my toothbrush and the clothes I was wearing. One of her great plans was to get up front for a ton of dope using everything of value we own as collateral. Drug dealer literally takes everything and puts it in a storage unit somewhere in town. Wife plans to stomp on the dope, sell it and by the weekend be a millionaire. The tweaker logic. Of course, she screws up the plan and ends up just doing the dope, so now all of our expensive stuff is in the wind. I tried to work out something with a piece of crap drug dealer, but he wanted an absurd amount of payback. Plus, I made some threatening comments he did not appreciate, so negotiations stalled. Eventually, I caught wind that he got locked up and that some friends took all his property, and that they put it in storage for safekeeping until he got out. I hit every storage place in town with my story and his picture hoping to catch some kind of break. Eventually, I found a place. The owner tells me that the unit is going up for auction next weekend for non-payment. He tells me if I just pay the 3 months back rent, that he'd write it up as I won the auction and I can have the unit. $320 gets slapped on the counter and we go drill the lock. All my stuff is there. And what do you know? Now I own all his stuff free and clear. And cause I'm a nice guy, I dug out all the personal irreplaceable stuff, like the old photos, important documents and so on, boxed them up and gave them to his mom. I found her on Facebook. Actually made quite a bit of money off the deal selling his stuff on Craigslist. And I came out about $2,000 in a plaque on the deal. I may be divorced now, but I have all of my stuff and I'm happy. Next story. It can only be replaced now if it's broken? Okay then. This happened in the 80s in the military. I was a PUC sergeant in charge of my unit's communications needs. We had an antenna kit we'd take to the field and set up for the radio. This would usually take about half an hour, but the officers were clueless, so we always told them we'd try to get it done before lunchtime chow. Anyway, the antenna had some rather large pegs that had to be pounded into the ground with a mallet that came with the kit. Remember this. One mallet comes with each antenna kit. A few days later, we're back at the base, and I'm going through the antenna kits to clean and inspect everything. Everything is not in order. The mallet is gone. Where is it? I'm sure it's sitting out on the ground out in the forest somewhere, never to be seen again. No problem. I hop over to the supply room and talk to the supply sergeant. I tell him, the mallet for the antenna kit is lost. Can I have a new one? He replies, Oh boy, no. I'm sorry, but this is an APC 123 item. I don't remember the designation. That means you'll need to write a report on how the item went missing. I'll have to do a follow-up report as well, your commander. This will go all the way to the company commander, who will have to authorize a replacement. I tell him never mind. Forget I asked. And now cue malicious compliance with army regulations. I went back to where we stored the antenna kits and got out 2 mallets from the other kits we had. I firmly attached one to a large pinch vise and smacked it very hard with the other mallet, breaking the one in the vise in half. I took half of the mallet to the supply sergeant. I found the mallet, but it's broken. No problem. Here is a replacement. I waited a couple of weeks and then took the other broken half to supply. Mallet broke again. No problem. Here is a replacement. I got 2 brand new mallets from one broken one and saved the army a lot of time and headache. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.